Hi, my name is Jennifer Reynolds, and I am founder of Scrolls Beneath the Sands. Back in 1994, when I was about 36 years old, I began having spontaneous past life memories. The most significant of these was a young boy named Obey living in ancient Egypt about 3,000 years ago during the reign of Ramses II. My father was a scribe, and he was also an overseer of a group of servants. They weren't slaves, but they were like on call in case something needed to be built, and they were being taken care of. My father decided to bring us out of Cairo, Egypt, south to a small town, and before he left, he borrowed some scrolls. These were Hebrew scrolls. And we went to the small town, and there was a small building that we stayed in as our house. It was really an office. So we had to sleep around the floor, and there was a table there. My father was going to teach me to write, so he had me transcribe the scrolls onto parchment paper, and I believe it's made out of vellum, which is a type of cow skin. And my mother was able to find 94 of these parchments. They're a little bit bigger than papyrus, which is made out of reed. Um, Whenever I would finish one of these parchment papers, my dad would leave it overnight so at least the ink could dry for 12 hours, and then he would seal it with either a wax or some sort of a resin, and that would take about 3 days to dry. And some of these we put into wooden tubes, and because they were a little bit bigger than papyrus, reed papyrus paper, he would have me bend it a little bit in the middle so that I could put the cap on. After some of these were done and there was a full moon, I would look out the door to make sure that nobody was watching, because we were going to hide these in secret. And my dad showed me where to put them, and I would go around the back of the house, and under the full moon, I would put one foot in front of the other and walk about 45 minutes straight out from the back of our house, which would have been east, until I reached this landmark, quite a big landmark. And a little bit to the left, always seemed to have to go a little to the left, there was a rock which I would move. And I would drop down to this hole, which was not much bigger than my shoulders. And I would go down about 7 feet on this ladder, and I would put the parchments there. And cover it back up with the stone, and then face my house with the landmark behind me, and again put one foot in front of the other so that I wouldn't get lost in the desert. During this time, my father and I traveled to Abydos for one of the Osiris festivals. And once there was this cedar post, and it was full of prayers. And one of them I read, and it was a man who was asking that his wife be healed. They had lost their son, and now she was sick, and he was saying that if she died, then he would be alone in the world. And this made me sad. I did go into the Seti temple, Seti the First, and there were stations there, and we would line up, taking turns to go to each one of these stations, giving each other some privacy. I didn't understand what I was looking at. I didn't understand maybe the hieroglyphs, maybe because I was Hebrew, and I didn't understand what the images meant, but I did go to each one of the stations. Once outside, there was this man. It was a distinguished looking gentleman, very handsome, was standing at the top of the steps, and I was at the bottom of the steps. And he sent me this telepathic message that said, "Tell that woman to come here." Well, my mother had been left back at the house, so I thought maybe he meant her, but he let me know that this was not the woman he was talking about. And then he said, "This is a remarkable woman." And I was a little bit scared of the guy because he was one of those people that had the ability of telepathy. It was a thing back then. We did know that people had this ability, and he was one of them. While there, my dad met up with a group of men who were discussing restoring the Seti temple, and my dad had made a comment like, "How are we going to do that? Nobody has any money. Who's going to pay for it?" Well, the guys kind of gave him a cold shoulder because this was not a can-do attitude, and he felt uncomfortable, and he told me he felt that they wished that he would leave. But he did hear them say that they were going to approach Ramses II and see if he would help um, fund the restoration of his father, Seti I's temple. I did also see the Osirian temple there, and I saw men walking through it. Some of the roof was still left, so I could see them and then not, and then see them again. But I dared not go in because I felt it was too sacred. And on the walk back home, my dad was quiet in thought. Once all the scrolls were done and safely tucked away underground, my dad decided to leave this town and return to Cairo. The town was fading, people were leaving, there was no water, and there was very little food. My dad asked me if I wanted to stay or did I want to go back with them, and because I had established a life there, I was young, I did not realize that everyone who was going to go, including my friends who were part of the servants, their sons, I played with them. I said that I would stay and maybe I would try to find some sort of work. Right in front of our house, which was really a type of office, was a small temple, and there were two young men in there. They were rather small people. And I approached them and asked them, was there anything that I could do? At first, the answer was no. But then one of them said he didn't like going into the tunnel to place the mummified birds, and that was something that I could do. They told me that whenever I went in to make sure I veered left and not go straight, because that went on forever. It was dark, it was scary, and I could get lost. I did not realize then that this tunnel that was inside the temple went all the way under my house and all the way to the landmark where I had hidden those scrolls. I didn't realize it then, but I do realize it now. There was a torch that I would stick into the resin and light it and go under there. And there was quite a pile of these birds. Some time had passed, and I overheard these two young men in the temple say that the birds had become scarce, and they decided that in order for their survival, that they would have to falsify the birds and make the mummification look like it had a bird in it by making it in the shape of the bird. And some time went by, and there were two men in a courthouse that was there who came and asked me, was I aware of it? There was a bit of a language barrier, so they misunderstood me when I said that I was aware of it, but that I had not participated in it. But I was slightly guilty due to the fact that I knew about it and I didn't say anything. But they told me, you are aware that this could mean death, and I agreed. I was complicit in this act. They left and they went towards Abydos, and when they returned, they were wearing this uniform that was brand new. It was really nice, and I was admiring it, and they were quite proud of it, I could tell. But they let me know that the verdict had been death, and I said, okay. And meanwhile, when my friends had left the town, one of them had stopped by the temple and told me that there was a monkey that they weren't going to take with them, and they were going to leave that monkey to me. So I began visiting the monkey and befriending the monkey, who was in a cage, and I would feed the monkey. From my quarters in the temple, I could see the two young men from the courthouse building a gallows. They had brought some wood, which was rather scarce. And I could see them jumping up on it and jumping off on it. They were playing, they were having fun. They knew that I was watching them. And sometimes they would stay the night outside on the platform. Meanwhile, the two men that were in the temple had left, probably back to Cairo, and they didn't let me know that they were leaving. So when the time came for the two guys at the courthouse to come and get me, I was facing the direction of where my monkey was. And that's all I could think about was, what's going to happen to my monkey? Who's going to take care of my monkey? So I was wailing and bawling my eyes out in distress over this monkey. Who was going to take care of it? What's going to happen to it? Well, the guys, I had watched them weave a rope, but it was rather too thin. and they put it around my neck. Well, it slipped up underneath my left jaw onto my carotid artery, and one of them tried to lift me by pulling the rope, but the other one had to help him. And this was extremely painful. I did not realize that it was going to be that painful. I probably stroked out rather than suffocated. After recalling this past life memory, many years went by and I decided that I wanted to go to a hypnotherapist. I was fortunate enough to find a woman named Nancy Hedjack who had been trained in the Dr. Newton past life hypnosis method. Dr. Newton is the author of several books about past life memories and life between lives. She did a 3-hour session with me. 2 hours of it was actual me under hypnosis. And I really remembered very, very little of this 2 hours after the session was over and I came out of hypnosis. But on the audio was a lot of EVP, and one of these was my father, EVP being electronic voice phenomena. And my father filled in quite a bit of information from that life as Obey. And one of them being that the 2 men from the courthouse had did a really good job mummifying me. They had wrapped me very tightly, which is what you wanted. Deciding that I wanted to know even more about this past life, I decided to use the hypnagogic state. That's between being awake and falling asleep. And I did have 2 visions. One of the visions I had was of this bully from one of the servants' son in my brother's face snarling, La na choti ie, meaning la blood, na not, choti young child, and ie saying, mocking him that you are not really a child of Ea, Ea being one of the Egyptian deities. I ran up and said, hey, hey, and grabbed my brother and took him back to my parents and told them what had happened. Another vision was of me standing with a group of people with both of our arms raised in the symbol of the Ka, saying, O Ka Ea. Well, O being a word of praise, Ka being the essence of life or the spirit, and Ea. So what we were doing was calling down the essence of Ea, the spirit of Ea. We were actually wanting him to return. Using the hypnagogic state again, I wanted to ask Obey where he was. Did he know the location, the name of the town? I wanted some more information. But what I heard was Iciente, which means my presence or my reality, my being, I do not know. So that was more plausible and believable than if he had actually come up with the name. Because of remembering this past life, which I feel that as Obey, I knew that one day that I would return. I believed in reincarnation then, I believe in reincarnation now, and it was meant for me to remember about this past life. Not only this one, but many others. So for this reason, I have founded Scrolls Beneath the Sands to help fund the excavation of these scrolls, to bring them back to light for this generation. I do believe that it was meant for this generation. As Obey, I knew that one day these scrolls were meant to be found, and I believed in reincarnation as Obey, and I believe in reincarnation now, having remembered multiple past lives. I'm quite literally the only one that knows that these scrolls exist, the coordinates, the landmark. And if we don't bring them up out of the ground now, they may be lost forever. So I'm hoping to generate the funds to make this project happen, and I do appreciate your support. Thank you.